Chapter 29. Were You There? Late 1918. Keep under hat. A secret. Keep this under your hat. Searcy County's first all-weather road was constructed between Marshall and Harriet in 1916, even though a number of disgruntled farmers, incensed at the prospect of paying taxes so that the 12-mile-long road could cut across their land, opposed it. Allegedly, some of the farmers dynamited a portion of the road and vandalized some construction machinery. At one point, protesters held the road workers at bay with shotgun fire. The era of progress had gone too far for them, but in the end, a smooth road joined the towns of Marshall and Harriet. It paved the way for the automobile to come to the county. The summer of 1918 brought secret plans as Riley and Melinda contemplated how they could marry under the circumstances. While Riley was of age to legally marry, Melinda wasn't. There were only two options: get her parents to agree to let her marry or wait till she was of age. But the summer heat and working long days in the fields added to her frustration and the tension between her and Giles. Love was pulling her to elope with Riley and start a life of her own, but it would be risky as her father kept a close eye on everything under his care. They both knew that Giles was not known for backing down to a challenge. While Billy Harness would have been amicable with Melinda's and her family, it would be a different story for Giles toward the Harnesses. Nonetheless, the couple set a day in November for the great escape. They slipped away and attempted to get married if they could bluff their way around her age. Passion makes us optimistic about the outcome. It can also dull our common sense. Passion can start a romance, and it can also start a war. As someone quipped, common sense tells us the earth is flat. So feelings and logic can't always save us from folly. Riley made a trip to the county courthouse in Marshall to acquire a marriage license on Friday, November 15, 1918. The plan then was for him to meet Melinda during the middle of the day at Atlas. Welcome home today. Earl Harness showed me where they were to meet, which is near the present church building. Melinda would look for an opportunity to make a run for it by pretending to need to go to the house for something while everyone else was in the field working. Rushing into the house, she took her only dress she wore to special events that was hanging on a nail. With it, she walked briskly to the north, crossing the fields and not taking the road with the hope of not being seen. Upon reaching Riley, the two of them rode his mule off the Hornbeck Trail down Lick Hollow to Bear Creek and past the Creek Farm to the country store beyond. Arriving at the Bear Creek store, Riley requested the storekeeper, Mr. John Lloyd, a justice of the peace, to fill out a marriage license for them. Names, address, and ages were entered. All information was assumed to be true based on the testimony of each. Melinda lied about her age, and Riley had to affirm it with his silence and signature. The false information was inserted on the line stating Melinda's age, and the document was then ready for them to be married. This is known as age fabrication, but in good faith, Justice Lloyd pronounced them husband and wife on November 23, 1918. They were legally married, but under a false statement of her age, the marriage could be annulled by Melinda's parents. That would make the marriage void. The couple rode back up the creek to the home of Billy Harness, where Riley lived. They had to explain why they were together on that Saturday afternoon and what they intended to do. Billy and Katie were willing to accept the pending marriage and make provisions for the couple to spend the night on Bear Creek. Melinda would stay the night in the lower house with Grandma Jenny and her granddaughter, Nora Bell. The couple yearned for privacy and peace, but given the circumstances, they knew that Giles would soon be on their trail, and they dreaded the confrontation that would come. Giles was in the field working with his family when Melinda had slipped away. After some time had gone by, he got uneasy about it and went to the house, where he looked inside and noticed that Melinda's dress was missing from the nail where it usually hung. He knew immediately that she had run away and that the missing dress pointed toward Bear Creek. Taking his mule, he rode the trail toward Emo, looking for evidence as he went. When he got to the schoolhouse and post office at Atlas, he probably got his first clue from someone who had seen Melinda get on a mule with James Riley harness. Giles rode north off the mountain, down the Hornbeck Trail, and down Lick Hollow, where he turned in at the Harness Creek farm on Bear Creek. The sun had not yet set, as Giles's search for his runaway daughter brought him to the home of Billy Harness. There must have been a lot of anxiety, with the newlyweds expecting to hear the sound of horse hooves coming down the trail. Pulling up into the yard, Giles called for his daughter by name to come out. Melinda remained inside, but Billy came out to greet Giles. He asked if his daughter was there, as Billy acknowledged that she was. Then Billy informed Giles that the couple had gotten married and reasoned with him that his son Riley was a good man and would make her a good provider. In an unexpected move, Giles left without his daughter. Even though he was gone, all knew that it didn't mean that it was over. That evening, Riley and Melinda were separated and did not sleep as husband and wife. Riley did not take Melinda as his wife, for it was still uncertain if he would be able to keep her. Giles did not indicate his intentions when he had ridden off that evening. Therefore, there was no celebration that normally went with a marriage and a honeymoon. The evening was more like us today, sitting in the waiting room and wondering what's next. Melinda could have easily been snatched up by Giles and taken home, where she would suffer from her witless actions. Riley could have put his love at risk and caused her harm. They both had taken a chance that day, and they slept very little, not knowing the future. Giles Turney was always known for being punctual. Some years later, his grandson Earl Harness lived with him for a few months to attend school. He told of how Giles would get up way before daylight and have breakfast. Then he would go feed and harness his mule, walk to the field with his plow and hook it up, and wait for the sun to rise enough for him to see how to plow. The man who had walked in the dark to put his axe on Jody's porch would wait in the field for the earth to turn on its light. The day after Giles found his daughter, which was Sunday morning, he was back to Billy Harness's chip yard at the crack of dawn. Chip yard is where firewood is stored and split. Perry Harness said that when he was a boy, it was the habit of Giles, when he rode up to the house, to announce his presences with, "Hello, hello, hello." I don't know if it was his practice still, but he did call for his daughter Melinda by name. Billy Harness responded and went out on the porch to greet Giles. Billy began with an appeal that the couple would do well and that Riley would make her a good husband. Billy needed Riley to help with the farm, as he was turning 60 years old. Giles was younger at 38, and he reasoned that Melinda could help Katie with chores and the house. Giles asked Billy to see the marriage license as Riley stood in the background. Handing it to his pa, Billy produced the paper and took it to Giles, who was still mounted on his mule. Giles scanned through the document and read the signatures of those who had participated in the ceremony. His eyes stopped on the line where Melinda's age was entered at 18. Pausing, he looked down at Riley, who was on the porch, with a piercing look, and asked, "Were you there?" Giles was not asking Riley if he was at the wedding, but if he was at her birth. It was a sarcastic way of saying, "I was there when she was born," implying that he knew exactly what her age was. The question puzzled Riley greatly, until he understood what Giles was asking him. It was a rhetorical question, and his way of saying that it was a lie. Unexpectedly, Giles handed back the certificate and whimpered as he turned his mule around. In relief, they all watched him ride away and disappear on the trail leading back up the mountain. Miraculously, Giles did not interfere nor have the marriage annulled. Reflection. We all try to make things work in our favor, and it can go either way, to our liking or to our disappointment. Riley had missed serving in the war and became a husband. He had to feel grateful that evening, as he then had his bride to have and hold for the next 60 years. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things you may desire cannot compare with her. Proverbs 3:15.